Okay, we are live. Good evening, everyone. How are you doing? We have a lot to talk about tonight. A lot of changes going on, a lot of interesting stuff. So I figure, where should I start first? I mean, obviously we have weather stuff to go on, but there's also a lot of upheaval in social media that I wanted to tackle first and foremost. So first of all, can everyone hear me? Everything's good. Looks like everything is set up here okay for the chat. Yeah, it looks like everything's running. So, good. Okay. Good evening, Card. All right. So, where do I begin? Okay. So, Elon Musk took over Twitter, which is fine. I got no personal issues on that. The man can buy whatever the heck he wants. I don't care. But there is a lot of questions about what this means for social media. And I've been dealing with this for a very, very long time, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, you name it. Okay? Even this chat right here, I have been warned before or been sent notifications of when I talk about climate change that could be an issue. And the option of not doing social media is not really realistic in my business world. It's easy to do that if you're a private citizen or if you're not dealing with getting information out. Okay, because social media is one of the major ways of getting social media out. So my solution is this: I'm not leaving Twitter. I'm not leaving social media. I have no idea what's going on with this verification thing, but I'll figure it out. But at the long run, you all know me, so you know it's me. You know what I mean? So I built this business before that blue check was put onto my account on Twitter, and I'll continue to build it whether it's after or not. Okay, but I did introduce one feature which I want to share with you guys. With our website, and let me pull it up here real fast. And that is Discord. And here we go. Let me put this up here real fast. Okay, not now. Okay, so I built this Discord. Now, my wife's been telling me about Discord forever, and how I can control features in there and introduce people. And so it's kind of like our own little social media hub about weather and climate. And this is all for open to the public. So you could talk about climate. You could post your forecast. You could post your pictures. This doesn't mean I'm going away from Twitter, or Facebook or anything else. But if anything does go away for whatever reason, we have this to fall back on. And I will be building this for quite some time and continue to invest in it. So definitely, looking forward to growing it. And in terms of the future with premium membership, that's going to continue. We're going to have specific premium accounts for severe weather, long-range thoughts, for the winter storms. I'm going to try to figure out how to set up the streaming on here that's protected, that's unique for premium members. But I'm really new to this whole thing, so it might be a mix between what I'm doing now and what I'm doing on Discord. The eventual idea is that I'm going to take the chat that you premium members are using right now and turn that into a Discord channel for two reasons. One, it's more stable, so as a result, the function of the website will be better. And two, it will reduce the strain on the website, so that way I can put more stuff on there. And three, all of our discussions and chats will be saved, and you can create a whole community on there. So that's what's going on with social media. I know some people wanted me to discuss that. Where am I going? Am I doing anything? Am I changing anything? Right now, I'm not leaving anything, but it would be foolish not to have a backup plan to just be prepared, right? So that's it with social media. in that respect. Now, let's talk about the weather, because that's what you guys are really coming here for. So as we go down, we check out the latest information on Hurricane. That's right, Hurricane Nicole. Nicole is barely a hurricane here, okay? Let's be very clear about that. Pull up satellite picture. I know that the media, for whatever reason, is putting out a ton of stuff showing the damage of Ian and then talking about this storm. These two couldn't be any more different, okay? To put it into baseball terms, Ian was a Grand Slam home run champion. This is a singles hitter. Now, both of them could do damage, but not like, this is Judge and this is a triple. Ian was Judge for you Yankee fans, if he's still on the team. And this is more like a double-A hitter that just got promoted into the major leagues because they needed a player. So the damage would be nowhere near the same. Okay, so let me be very clear about that. This is going to produce very heavy rainfall, strong winds on the Florida coast. It's going to pass, if I can load it right here, probably right around here in east central Florida. And it has some poor organization, but it has a somewhat organized eyewall. But again, it's not very strong, okay? And the good news is that this storm is moving pretty quickly. So it's going to make landfall, and by tomorrow afternoon, it's going to start to push through the panhandle and lift up through Georgia. So we already know a couple of important things with this storm, and we can see it very nicely here on the water vapor satellite picture. If I pull it up. Okay, so first of all, the process for this storm to transition over into an extratropical storm won't take long. Why do we know this? Because we're already seeing dry air infiltrate the core of the system, and you're seeing already parts of the previous subtropical structure starting to become reestablished once again. You're already seeing the increase before our trough even starts to impact this storm. You're already starting to see, because of that dry air, a limitation on how fast it can intensify. But you also see plenty of tropical moisture for our approaching trough to utilize. Another feature is that you're already seeing the indication of where your strongest moisture transport is going to be, and that's going to be on the northwest side of this tropical circulation, which is typical of these tropical low pressure systems. Let me clear that out. In this type of storm structure, that means that anyone along and to the west of the circulation will see the heaviest rainfall. And anyone to the east of that circulation will still experience some heavier rainfall, but more broken up and feature more showers and thunderstorms associated with this scenario. So based on the location of this low pressure system and the way that this upper level trough is moving, you should see a storm track that cuts right up along the Appalachians and through Pennsylvania. About, let's say, cutting right up to about here in northeast Pennsylvania. And so essentially that means for the northern Mid-Atlantic, for much of the northern Mid-Atlantic, that means that you end up with a scenario where you get one wave of very heavy rainfall, essentially almost like a warm front driving northward. And then after that, you'll get the cold front coming through with another wave of heavy rainfall. So what does that look like in the model guidance? And by the way, I'm going to get to all your questions in the premium chat. And yes, we'll check out the YouTube chat and go through all of that, because it looks like we already have a lot of information here already, a lot of questions already. So definitely drop that. Ashley Card already has a ton of questions and thoughts and whatnot, and we'll cover that. But I would just want to break down some of the features with this storm first. So when I'm taking a look at the model guidance here, this feature right here is showing up on pretty much all the model guides. You can use the GFS, you can use the European, heck, you can use the UK Met, the Korean, whatever you want to use. It's all pretty much showing this signature. So what does this signature tell me as a meteorologist? Well, good coffee. Well, it tells me that first we'll get a pretty strong frontogenesis from the warm front that moves through. And we can connect that to what we see here at 850 millibars. So when we have this type of scenario showing up in the model guidance, and there you can see the old warm core signature right back here, what that essentially means is that you get this wall of rainfall marching northward, probably on Friday afternoon and evening, with some wind gusts, and those wind gusts show up pretty nicely here with our jet streak. Look at those winds. That's impressive. Let's zoom in on that for Friday afternoon. You're talking about roughly somewhere between 35 and 50 knot winds at 850 millibars getting mixed down to the surface in your heavier downpours. So there's your heavy rainfall and also your strong wind gusts and power outage threat for Friday afternoon and evening, driven by this jet streak. So this is all telling me it's going to be a rather stormy evening. But then we get like a break late in the evening. Like let's say about 10, 11 o'clock, you get like a little bit of break with these scattered showers and thunderstorms. And then we get the cold front coming through on Saturday morning. And this is some pretty strong cold air transport. And that's supported by strong PVA at 850 millibars, 700 millibars, and 500 millibars. Now you see this feature right here. Let me see if I can get to it. This signature right here. This tells me that we're going to be dealing with a solid line that's going to be basically elevated thunderstorms. So don't be surprised around 2, 3, 4 a.m. on Saturday morning if we get a line of strong thunderstorms, probably low-top thunderstorms, marching their way through the region, capable of very heavy rainfall, frequent lightning, wind gusts over 40 miles per hour, possibly reaching severe levels, leading to some wind damage and power outages on Saturday morning. Do not be surprised Saturday morning you wake up and there's no power for some locations based on this line marching through. And then once this line marches through, your temperatures, your high temperatures during the morning will basically stabilize. And from the rest of the day in the afternoon, your temperatures basically start to free fall. So that by the time you get to the evening, you're talking about temperatures in the 40s and 30s and continuing to fall thereafter. And Sunday looks to be a rather chilly day if you're heading out to the football games. I believe the Jets are playing, right? I think they have. Who has the bye? I forgot who had the bye. But I know someone's playing at the Meadowlands. I just blanked my mind for a second. But I know that it's going to be rather cold and windy. So better bundle up when you head out to the Meadowlands. But it will be dry. One thing to also keep an eye on Sunday is don't be surprised with this type of cold air transport if we get some lake effect snow taking off on the eastern Great Lakes. And some of those snow showers reaching the Poconos and Catskills on Sunday afternoon. Now that takes us to our next scenario, which I want to step back first. And I talked about this in the long-range thoughts this evening. And that is the changing dynamics going on in our atmosphere. As you can see here, our EP flux, which we've been talking about since the issuing of the winter forecast. Remember I said that the strength of the EP flux will allow for transport of warm air from the tropospheric mid-latitudes to the stratospheric high latitudes. And that's going to just basically punch at the polar vortex like Mike Tyson taking out a light bag, right? He's just going to keep on whacking it. Well, guess what? It's getting whacked and getting crushed. So what you end up with already is a stretched and distorted polar vortex. And that's showing up on the GFS. In fact, here, take a look at this. This is so cool. This website is stratoobserve.com. Definitely a great website to check out. It was built by one of the graduate students. An excellent source of information. Take a look at this vortex here. I mean, this is beautiful how it shows the evolution. Your North America is right here. See if I could zoom in on it. And what stands out to me is notice the distortion taking shape here. From the top of the stratosphere to the top of the troposphere. This type of distortion, this type of warping going on here, increases the potential for high latitude blocking in the troposphere at 500 millibars. So we're seeing this already. And what's really interesting to me, what really stands out to me, is that we saw this warping and weakening in October. And so the idea was, okay, we've seen this in mid-October. It's a weak polar vortex. It should strengthen as we move into early November. And it did. And as a result, we ended up with a warm pattern, right? I mean, record-breaking warmth, right? But once it got to that strengthening, the one question would be like, okay, does that mean that the polar vortex remains stable, or does it start to get weakened again? Does it get distorted again? And boy, has it ever. And so as a result, this leads to a cascading event, which leads to a strong negative EPO pattern. But you never want to trust just one model. So let's take a look at the European, what it's doing. Well, here we are right now. There's almost a split. It tries to solidify itself, and oh no, it gets stretched again. It gets distorted again. Very much similar to what the GFS is showing. So now we have two primary models that we use day in, day out for medium range and short range forecasting for the cold season and warm season, but we're focusing on the cold season right now. That supports the development of continuation of transport of warm air from the mid-latitude troposphere to the high-latitude stratosphere, impacting and squeezing on this polar vortex, which translates to what we're seeing at 500 millibars, which I'm going to show right here. This is the first 10 days. Now look at that. That right there is a cold weather pattern. But it's not specifically a winter storm pattern for the East Coast, for those of you looking for it, because it goes to just barely a negative NAO pattern right at the end here. So this could be something of interest. But what stood out to me before this point was right about here. For most of the first 9 days of this forecast, you end up with a negative EPO pattern and a positive NAO pattern. And that's important because what it means is that you get your storm tracks able to push off the coast faster. The coastal plain is able to warm up. This is the type of pattern that would support snow over the interior and a warm up on the coast. Now, this signature showed up in the 12Z guidance today. This, if it continues to build, and we see some support of it on the ensembles, and we see some support on it on the GFS, would lead to a cold and stormy pattern and a negative EPO, AO, and NAO pattern, which basically, for those of you that don't understand what that means, is the three signals that will support a winter storm development for the end of November or early December, potentially. And we see that showing up very nicely in the ensemble guidance. Now, remember, with all this being said, a lot of factors still would have to work out, like, for example, the timing of different short waves, phasing, all that stuff. But what I want to get across to you right now that's really key is if you are looking for an active winter weather pattern, all the signals are there. The question is, all the ingredients are there. The question is, does a cake bake right? Okay? If I was looking for a lead-in for November of an active winter weather pattern of the signals that I'm looking at, this would be it. Finally, I wanted to touch on the La Nina, which still is clearly a moderate east-based La Nina setup. You can take a look at the readings here. 1 plus 2 is at minus 2.21. That's bordering on strong right there. And then as we head across, minus 1, El Nino 3, 3.4, minus 0.9, and 4. We're at minus 7.75, minus 0.75. What that basically means is that you have your coldest observations in the eastern part with a continuation of a positive PDO. There's been some thought and some discussion that the SOI is crashing. What's crashed was the daily values. Okay, I'm going to give you guys a little hint here. When you're studying the SOI for influences on La Nina and El Nino, you want to look at the monthly and the seasonal, 30-day and 90-day averages. You don't want to do daily. Daily is under the influence of the MJO, and it can become extremely volatile. So you can end up with scenarios where you're at plus 31 and crash to minus 31, just based on the fact that the MJO happened to drop into phase 8. But it's not sustained, as you can see here. You know, if you look at the past 2 weeks, you could see the rate in which it could become increasingly volatile. But because it's not sustained, it's not the best way to check out seasonal trends, okay? It's a good way to pick up the potential for storms, okay? So when you have a rapid drop in the SOI, you could usually pick out the potential for some sort of storm activity on the East Coast. When you have a rapid rise, usually that means more tranquil weather pattern. Not always, but usually. But when you're looking at averages as far as impacts on La Nina, what you want to do is look at this red line here and this dashed line here, your seasonal and monthly values, because that's going to give you the overall trend. As you can see, there is some slight weakening, which is what's expected as we move forward with our La Nina. In December and January, we should see a steady weakening of the La Nina influences. So that really hasn't changed. But I wanted to touch on that because I've been floating around social media. So I wanted to explain that and share that with you so that way you guys understand what we're dealing with. Let's see. So now I think we covered everything. I'm just checking to see my notes here. Yep, I wrote notes just to make sure we got everything down that I want to get down. And it looks like it's good. Let me get rid of this because this. And good. Okay, good. So let me go and take on some of these questions because as we could see, we have a ton on YouTube and a lot on our premium chat. So let me make sure that is loaded correctly and we will get this moving. And wow, it is really active tonight. Okay. Okay, so let me get to, let's see, where do we want to start? Let's see. Okay. Wow, there's a lot. Okay. Let's see here. Don't do social media. Okay, well, all right. We won't do politics tonight. We'll keep that out here. Exciting times ahead across the board. I know you usually toe the statistical line, but it truly feels like this year we finally see a white Christmas. Okay, I'm not going to predict a white Christmas. No way, because first of all, I think it would jinx it. That's my honest to God truth. Excuse me. But I will say this. If there was a year for us to have a white Christmas, this might be it. Maybe. If everything worked out. But again, you're talking about a 10% chance or less. This is some low from 850 to 500 millibars just south of the western tip of the Aleutians. Yep, that is... Let's go pull up that low. That is right here. Let's look at how this impacts the entire pattern here. So this storm is starting to intensify and cause the amplification of the polar jet stream. So what that does is that it kicks this trough off to the east, and that is what captures our hurricane and send it right up the east coast. So this whole pattern is kicked off by the powerful trough that is developing here and the evolution of our negative EPO. If not for that, the trough would have stayed in the west, and Nicole would have meandered down in the southeast and not be much of an impact. How bad should Nicole be in Tamarack, Florida area, around Jacksonville area, away from the St. Johns River of Dome? Well, Card, I don't think it's going to have that much of an impact, to be honest with you. Some heavier rain, some gusty winds, but really the bulk of the impacts are going to be right around here, which is going to be well south of Tamarack, Florida, and Jacksonville. But you'll still see, as you can see here, heavy rain rotating in. But I would expect maybe tropical storm force winds. Evening, Chris. 10 millibar polar vortex looks like the Darlington Speedway. Okay, let's take a look at that. I don't know the Darlington Speedway because I don't really follow Speedway stuff, but let's take a look at 10 millibars. All right, well, we definitely have noticed again, our polar vortex is certainly strengthened in terms of the winds compared to what we saw earlier in the fall, which is what you would expect. But again, you see this warped feature here? This is a real sign here of what I was talking about in the observations. As long as you get this type of scenario playing in, you're going to have support for high latitude blocking all winter long. And then at 70 millibars, it's starting to show almost a split. And if this materializes in the winter, things are going to get pretty interesting. Let's see. 70 millibars has multiple feeds from the tropics and mid-latitudes, which seems so weak for mid-November. Yeah, there's quite a few of them. Again, notice how active the subtropical jet stream is, which again is unusual for what you would expect for La Nina. With the track west of us, will that result in coastal plain New York City metro area getting more showery activity with heavy downpours rather than steady rain? Also, what is the potential for lifting to the west, suppressed precipitation east of the storm, with perhaps sinking air from the mixing air to the surface from 850 millibars? Not exactly. This is what essentially is showing up in the model guidance. So let me just show you this. So this part here is essentially your warm air transport, which is showing up in the late morning and afternoon hours on Friday. So this is wave 1. This marches through, and in the evening, we end up with this broken scattered shower scenario with some embedded thunderstorms. I'm not expecting severe thunderstorms, though. I think that that's going to be more focused down towards North Carolina tomorrow afternoon. Then, in the overnight hours, comes the cold front, and then we'll watch this line of possibly some strong, maybe a few isolated severe thunderstorms associated with that. By the time you get out, wake up Saturday morning, the bulk of the rainfall is done. So the heaviest rainfall, I'd say, if you're waking up at 8 a.m. on Saturday, is over. And then you start to get windy conditions, but still a pesky shower here and there. By Saturday afternoon, like noon, you're fine. If you have any outdoor plans, just be prepared for falling temperatures. Do you expect most of the wind to be convective activity, or is there any synoptic wind threat? There will be a synoptic wind threat associated with some of those heavier downpours, not necessarily convective, but there will be some thunderstorms as well. So it's kind of like a mixed bag. But I expect winds to be sustained and at times gusting up to 40 miles per hour, especially ahead of some of our heavier rainfall. It's the Giants at home today. Okay, I got confused. So it is the Giants, so they should have nice chilly weather. At this point, do you see potential for there to be feedback in the developing pattern that helps keep it in place? Hard to say right now what that I like the idea of a feedback pattern based on what we're seeing right now, but I don't know how that looks, because we have to establish the pattern first and then see how it feeds back, what the process is. But I think the potential is certainly there. Do you think this pattern will continue into December and January? Yes, and the reason why I think that this pattern will continue is because the forcing parameters, that drives this pattern are not changing. If anything, they're intensifying, except for the La Nina. Does the latent heat release from Nicole help kickstart a negative NAO? Not in this scenario. What you would want with latent heat release in tropical systems is a Category 3 or stronger storm to head up towards like Greenland. So let me give you an example. If you had a storm like today, a weak tropical storm or hurricane, by the time it reaches the higher latitudes, the amount of heat energy being transported into the higher elevations would be minuscule, because a lot of that energy has already been worked out in the mid latitudes. But if you had a Category 5 hurricane going up into the northern Atlantic and remaining sustained and then transferring into an extratropical storm, that would kickstart a negative NAO pattern, because you're introducing a lot of heat energy into the higher latitudes. I would only feel safe predicting a white Christmas when it's less than a week away. I agree. What do the sea surface temperatures look like in the Indian Ocean? Let's take a look. Let's see here. We'll zoom in. It's definitely warmed up since we last talked. Near to above average in portions of the Indian Ocean, but nothing that's too impressive. We've seen some cooling recently in portions of the Gulf of Alaska. We've remained very warm here over much of the northern Pacific, though. And of course, over the northern Atlantic, we have a pretty strong signal here for a negative NAO pattern to eventually develop, or at least feed back on itself. Let's see here. Good evening, Stephen. This is from Dylan. How are you doing so much snow? Do you think we are getting 12 inches plus? For the season? Well, considering our average is usually over 20 inches, I would say, and I'm going with above average snowfall this year, I would definitely say we'll probably see 12 inches or more for a season total. Is there any Western Pacific tropical activity? Nothing of significance. I think there's a tropical depression trying to form, but nothing too impressive. I mean, how much snow do you think we are getting? Autocorrect is annoying. Yes, it is.
Auto incorrect.
Yes, often. Again, like I would say, this year I'm going, and definitely check out the winter forecast, because I go in this in detail. But I definitely expect more than 12 inches in total for the season. That is for sure. I would say that depending on your location, especially if you're in the interior, I would definitely expect above normal snowfall, near to above normal snowfall on the coastal plain. So far we had some great questions. Let's see, we got the... There's just anarchy going on YouTube, which is, as always, which kind of leads into what I was talking about. Yeah, there's some other stuff too that showed up. Yes. Yeah. Let's see here. Good evening, everyone, of course. Can you post an invite link for that Discord? If you go to the website, okay, let me pull. Yeah, here, let's... So I'm going straight to the website, and you go right there. See this right here? Just click on this, and you'll be able to go right to Discord. Brian stands right out there. What are your thoughts on severe weather come Saturday morning on New Jersey? We definitely covered that. I would still say don't be surprised early in the morning that we get some stronger thunderstorms. I like the idea for those thunderstorms mostly to be focused like in the Poconos, northern New Jersey, Hudson River Valley, Catskills, and lifting up through Connecticut. I think the further south you are, I think the less likely you'll have that, mostly because of where we're going to be locating the strongest dynamics. The strongest dynamics are going to be lifting up towards, in fact, let me pull it up here while I'm talking about it. That makes sense. Notice the strongest lifting in this scenario is all pushing into New England. So that tells me your strongest lifting and your best support for any of those low top thunderstorms are all going to be focused to the north of us, but that's going to be the potential in the morning hours. Let's see here. The Giants have a home game. I'm being reminded of that. Okay. What do you think of the 18Z high-res NAM low-level jet at 925 millibars being so strong? I'm going to give you a little bit of a warning about the NAM, especially 18Z guidance. Going back to, I'd say, a decade, I've never, ever trusted the 18Z or 06Z NAM. For whatever reason, it has a lot of feedback error. It has a lot of convective feedback error, and it leads to a lot of erroneous precipitation and wind impacts showing up in the guidance. And that's usually generated in the low-level jet streak, like you're describing there, and a lot of erroneous precipitation outputs. How many times have we had this chat ahead of a winter storm where the 18Z European 18Z NAM is putting out some ridiculous snowfall amounts? So every so often it catches a nut and actually does something correctly because of mesoscale banding. But that's usually in correspondence with the HRR guidance, and the European guidance also seeing the same thing. But I tend not to trust what the NAM is showing at 18Z very much. And in this scenario, we have to remember that this is an environment where the storm is weakening. Okay, it's not strengthening. It is weakened into a non-tropical storm, and the transport of warm air transport is racing well out ahead of the cold air transport, so it's losing its thermal gradient influence. You think this upcoming cold storming pattern could be a precursor of the dominant weather pattern for the winter? I think it has a strong potential. With all this being said, the 12Z GFS did have a Thanksgiving snowstorm. Is this possible? I can't rule it out. I'll put it that way. Let's take a look at the GFS. Let's take a look and see what the old GFS did, because most likely did something wacky, right? So let's see here. First, let's take a look at the actual observations here. And we said 12Z, so let's go to that. There's our storm. Pretty much matching the European now. Everyone's in agreement. Storm number 2. And here we go. Ahead of Thanksgiving. So how does it do this? Well, let's go. Let's see. 288 hours. First of all, I wouldn't trust anything as far as details this far out with this or any other guidance. But for argument's sake, let's just kind of take a look at the vorticity here on how it comes about doing this, because it's a good learning moment. So what it does is that it's sending out this shortwave and kind of minoring it out and ripping it apart. So this is the first warning sign here. You're having a short wave that is racing across the country, being sheared apart. So that's usually a sign of weakening lifting, and usually something that's going to be suppressed and much weaker than what's being shown in the guidance. Then take a look at 700 millibar relative humidity for this time period. And let's see here. So during that time period, limited dry air and strong dry air transport ahead of it. Maybe some sort of antifront scenario trying to play out. And then finally, 850 millibars. That's the That's the European. Let's pull up the GFS here. And what we're looking at here is to see if it has any frontogenesis associated with this. So there's our next storm. And then here is... Okay. So in this scenario, what you essentially would have is a thread the needle scenario with a sheared out disturbance and still I'd say maybe a neutral NAO pattern with a fast moving system. This most likely is a traditional cold front passage with cold air transport and maybe a few lingering snow showers. So I think the GFS is most likely overdone based on what I'm seeing here. Do you think our first accumulating snowfall will be in New Jersey? I would say more the Poconos. Is there any potential for the polar vortex to do what it did in 2019-20? 2019-2020. That winter was a very unique scenario. I see literally no support for that right now. I say that right now because the forecasting of the stratosphere and the interaction between the ionosphere and the stratosphere and the mesosphere is still something that we're studying and learning on a daily basis. But right now I see no observations to support that. Let's drop back into the premium chat here. Let's see here. Except Long Island, they get nothing because they complain every time about the amount of snow they get. Well, that's true. That in eastern Pennsylvania, actually around the Philadelphia metro. And no matter what happens, I always get a complaint that they didn't get enough snow. Hey, Steve. Came in here late. How has the snowpack been progressing in Siberia and Canada? It's essentially stabilized. Let me see if I can pull up the observations here. I should have kept that up, but for some reason I didn't. Chart climatology, departures. So let's see here. It's help if we got to the right year. Okay. So is essentially stabilized in Siberia, pretty much near normal if you average out the differences here. North America, except for portions of southeastern Canada, where you have slightly below normal, that's going to change pretty quickly with our next storm. You essentially are running at above average anomalies over much of North America. And this feature right here is going to get wiped out by the remnants of Nicole and our Arctic air mass, which you can see. And go back here again to our observations, to our forecast, should I say. Doing good tonight. And you can see our storm producing significant snowfall again and again. So I think that deficiency is going to get wiped out, and we're going to end up with basically a scenario with above normal snowfall. Now, the European, should I point out, is showing the same signature as the Canadian leading up to that same time period. But notice the precipitation shield here is a lot more scattered, a lot weaker, and a lot more suppressed. So just something just to keep an eye on. We'll watch it and see how it evolves. Does Discord require registration, or does it use the same credentials of the premium membership? Right now, it requires registration. I am currently working on ways to sync the credentials on the premium membership with the with Discord. Discord is like a separate website, a separate area, a separate chat room, so to speak, right? But I am working on where someone comes into Discord and I can match up their credentials with what's on the website. It's very much a work in progress.
It's in its infancy.
It's in its infancy. Like, I was forced to kind of do this with all this other nonsense going on social media, I just was like, all right, I got to get a backup plan just in case. And so far, it's actually worked out pretty nicely on Discord. There's a lot of positivity, and most importantly, like you can post politely different points of view, and no one's going to like attack you or anything for it. So, as long as you're cool, and as I put on there, no politics, because the one thing we don't want is politics or religion, unless you have pumpkin pie. So then I'm fine with that. Good evening. What is the Cleveland are looking like for this winter, and lake effect as well? Okay. Okay, so basically Cleveland is looking to feature below normal temperatures this year, an active lake effect season, but more so for the Eastern Great Lakes than around you. I think that you're going to miss out on the bulk of that, but we'll see. Mesoscale factors are always kind of tricky to forecast for, but I think that the bulk of the winter storms are going to be to the south of Cleveland, and the bulk of your lake effect scenarios are going to be to the east of you, off of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. So you're kind of caught in that no man's land right around Cleveland in terms of snowfall this year. But that could change. Is it publicly available to anyone with a Discord? Is it publicly available to anyone with a Discord account or only premium members? The reason I ask is due to work limits on social media. Use plus my antipathy towards social media. Okay, so anyone can go to Discord, right? And you don't have to pay anything or anything. That's a free account. You just go in there.
It's a free account.
The link, yeah, you don't have to pay anything, right? The idea here is that if you're a premium member, I'm going to set up protected channels that only premium members can go to and chat. And those channels are going to be used to when we have winter storms and I'm doing live video. And instead of going through YouTube, I just do the live chat right in Discord. So I don't have to set up a YouTube channel. I just go right into Discord and do the live chat there. So it kind of enhances the protection, doesn't allow anyone else to get into it. And there's a lot more features that I can use. Is that correct?
I just want to remind you that to set up an account is free. You just need an email and set up a password. It's basic information.
Right. That's my wife, by the way, and just so you know.
And just remind them that they can get to it through your website.
Right. The link's right on the website.
Link sent to them. They can access it themselves.
Right. And you can get in there anytime. And
You can't hear me very well. I'm low. So just
yeah. So again, the account is free. Okay. It's separate. It's a good way to avoid social media and have your own chat, your own area. All the updates I do on social media will be on there as well, so you don't miss anything. Plus a little bit more, because I'm able to respond a little bit faster in Discord. Also,
Nico and YouTube also pointed out you can also download the Discord app or the computer software.
Right, you could download the Discord app or the computer software. You could go like in your browser or have an app on your phone, and you can get to Discord that way. That's the point. Is that I'm trying to find ways to make sure that this community stays this community, regardless of whatever happens in the future. Because now I'm just kind of throwing up my hands with I don't know what's going to happen next, and I'd rather not lose what we have built. See. Oh, I appreciate that, Mother Riza. I appreciate that.
Ruzia.
Huh? Ruzia. I'm so horrible with names.
Bad with pronunciation.
I am horrible. It is good thing I am not a politician, or else I'd get roasted. You can also download Discord app on your computer software. That's true. Let's see here. What else? Wow. It's almost 9 p.m. already.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Yep. So a couple other things. If you have any suggestions for premium members. If you have any suggestions on what you would like to see on Discord in terms of private channels going forward, definitely let me know. I could develop them. The idea is that also we'll be able to have live chats together, have premium only chats maybe, or video discussions. There's a lot of things that we can do. So we'll see where that goes. And maybe add like a chat, a sports chat or something like that that's unique. Something of that nature.
Yeah, I get the joke.
On
YouTube.
Okay. As a Yankee fan, worried that Judge will go somewhere else. As a Met fan, do you feel about DeGrom being on the market? I have mixed feelings about DeGrom. Okay, so I'm going to put it this way. As a Met fan, for my heart, I would love to DeGrom to finish his career as a Met. From pragmatic point of view, as much as DeGrom is impressive, the man cannot stay healthy. So what am I getting for $40 million a year? Am I getting a guy who's going to be able to pitch the whole season and shut everyone down? Or am I getting a guy who can't get through spring training without having to go on the DL? I don't know. On one side, DeGrom was the only pitcher in the postseason that actually pitched well. On the other side, DeGrom is one of the only pitchers in our staff that didn't last a whole month most of the time. So what am I getting, right? So there's a difference between emotion and then pragmatic. And it's hard to balance both. So I don't know. And that's why I'm not a GM. Let's see here. We answered. Where's the invite to the Discord channel? Jake, the invite is right on the website.
Being answered in the comments.
Oh, okay.
They said that there's on the site now and there's no link listed.
Right on the website? Hold it, right? It is right there.
Yeah, that's it.
Right there. Ta-da, right.
Let's explain the comments.
His homepage. On the site now, no link listed. But it's right there. There. Syndergaard is a free agent as well. Yeah, you could keep Syndergaard. I'm done. Where do you through the next month or so, where do you have the main storm track, and will there be a more southern storm moving in the eastern US? Okay. So, I'm expecting, based on what I'm seeing here, I'm expecting a storm track that generally will cut through the plains, through the Tennessee River Valley, and head towards the Mid-Atlantic. I think that's going to be your primary storm track. I would be mindful in December of storms coming in, clippers coming in from the northern plains. And I'd also keep an eye out on any storm, especially in December, of any storm development around the Carolinas and heading up the coast. I don't right now see a support for a storm track, at least not frequently, cutting up through the Great Lakes. I think that's going to be a rare storm track this year. I really do. Based on everything I'm seeing, I really, really do. I would not be surprised if we have a winter where most of the storm tracks are focused over or south. And Jake got it.
Yep.
It is the Discord icon. Press it. I love it. Okay. Coffee's doing good. So yeah. So as we move forward, I'm going to be building this community. And the idea here is that I will continue to grow this, the chat and everything, still have the YouTube chat. I want to make this very clear. Everything I've been doing, there is no change. But I'm adding on. So that way, no matter what happens, I'm still here. And we're still growing. And Discord is going to be the forum area that I originally wanted to build with the chat that I have in place in the premium section. The idea was for this to be an area for the community to chat. This, I think, will allow us to do that and grow it. And I'm really excited to see where that goes and where that takes us. Any chance the pattern change will help the drought on the Mississippi? I think the mid and lower Mississippi, yes. The upper Mississippi, not so much. But I think that the lower and mid valleys right around here, I'm doing good. I'm talking as well as people are chatting, as typing. Right around here will basically support the reduction of drought conditions. But it's still pretty bad. It's going to take months, not weeks, months to reduce the drought conditions there, unfortunately. All right, it looks like we're doing pretty good with the chat now.
Yeah, all right.
Pretty good questions here. And Discord is active as well. I'm just checking that. Steve rocks. You figured it out, Jake. All right, good deal. We have some activity here with the winter forecast. See, and this is what I love. I got one guy here under the winter forecast, under the public chat area, that's posted his own winter forecast, which is great, and that's awesome. And you guys could go there and debate that and see what you think of what he has compared to what I have, and enjoy that. You know, use it. Go on, have fun, learn something, but always be polite. I'm going to tell you guys this: keep it civil. There's no reason to get angry over a chat room. If someone disagrees with you, just treat it like your relative at a holiday party. Just say, okay, no problem, and walk away.
Okay, pass the yams.
Exactly. Pass the yams and walk away. Okay. So it is practically 9 o'clock. I think we pretty much answered everything that we wanted to look for. Before we go, let's take another look at Nicole. See if we have any more updates. It is well on its way of heading towards Florida. It looks like it will make landfall in Florida by around midnight or so. I would say somewhere between 12:30 and 1 a.m. Right around here. Notice the track is a little bit north of west. Again, not the most organized eye wall here, but plenty of convection out ahead of it. The heaviest precipitation is clearly on the northwest side of the circulation. I think that's going to be a theme as it tracks right up the coast and right up into the Appalachians. In terms of satellite presentation, not exactly impressive. Let me reset this. Again, anyone who's trying to compare this to Ian is an idiot. I'm just going to say it. This is nowhere near that. It's barely a hurricane. I would not be surprised if it rapidly weakens into a tropical storm right after it makes landfall. And again, the latest observations as of the 7 p.m., which, by the way, thank God the clocks fall back, because now we can get these updates at 4 and 7 and not have to wait late in the evening. An hour makes a huge difference on everything, model data and everything. It has winds of 75 miles per hour, and you can see the turn here. It's already becoming extratropical by Friday afternoon, which is pretty fast. So this is going to be a short-lived storm. So that's certainly some good news in that respect, and reduce the heavy rainfall potential. So that's it for tonight. I think we covered a lot in the live chat. Thank you again for coming in here and joining us and joining our community. I'm looking forward to the future. I'm looking forward to the potential of a lot of interesting activity and a lot of chats. Share this with your friends. If you're on a weather forum, let them know to come in and join the chat. As long as they're polite, they are more than welcome. Have a wonderful night, and as always, stay safe out there.